this is Kenny Clark, and this is Lombardi's Bar.
This is one of my favorite podcasts to do.
I'm just, blessed and thankful to be a part of this podcast. It's a great podcast, it's a great interview.
Maybe I know that you guys obviously being the best Packers podcast that's out there.
I had Malort this weekend, so I'm not tasting anything.
Oh, good.
He did.
God.
He did. That was fantastic.
Because they said, "Did you ever try Malort?" And I said, "No." And then they said, "Do you want to take a shot of Malort?" I said, "No," but I did.
Wait, who said
it's called
peer pressure.
Yeah.
I tried to get in a high honors English class once, and they called my parents and were like, "Hey, just tell him he can't do it."
It shows. It really shows.
I hate you guys so much.
I'm going to throw these two guys into the screen so that if I die, they can carry on the legacy of crap that is this show. Well, hello, Green Bay Packer fans. How are we all feeling today? Are we feeling a little bit better after a week where the Packers didn't look like hot, flaming garbage? I know I am. I'm having a great weekend. Fantastic week. Fantastic last 7 days of sports since the last time that the show was on. I wasn't on last week, obviously, though. Messing around in the chat like Emma and Iowa Joe, Matt Freilich. Welcome in, everybody. I'm your bartender, Dan Kotnick, and before we bring in our guests here, just some wise words of wisdom that have been passed down throughout the decades. It goes a little something like this: I ziggy zumba, zumba zumba. I ziggy zumba, zumba zay. Roll along, you BG Warriors. Roll along and fight for BGSU. Your Bowling Green Falcons. Todd, your Bowling Green Falcons. They're bowl eligible.
What a game.
Taking down the
What a
UT
game.
Rockets in the Glass Bowl for the
Toledo
first time
had
since
no
2008.
No chance.
Bowl eligible for the first time since 2015.
I tell you, Dan, I had that game on last night, and I was watching it so non-intently that it was barely even background noise in my apartment. But it was on, and I was like, go BG.
I appreciate that. Because did you actively see it was BG and be like, Dan, make the connection?
Yeah, I knew that you were going to be rock hard at home watching that.
It was.
You don't have to elaborate. Just
45 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy, how where were you on the protractor?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't know Bowling Green was Division One. I thought it was like D2, D3. So I was not on
the
it.
Maction. You can't get on board with the Maction?
Hold on.
I don't know what that is, but I'll be
I was
honest.
not. At no point am I slandering Mac.
Yeah, he's talking about rock hards with it. That's pro
Tuesday night
Mac.
action.
No, Todd's fully on board. Jimmy's the one that's trying to diss the Mac.
No, I just am unaware. Thank you,
Jimmy.
for
In case
educating
you
me.
missed it, Iowa Joe wanted you to suck it.
Yeah.
Hey, Iowa Joe. It was great talking to you on Monday. I regret it now.
All right. Enough of my Bowling Green antics. We'll get into what really matters, and that is, gentlemen, we are 5 days away from the World Cup. Baby.
Just bring in the guests, honestly, before I
Hey,
leave the
Dan,
show.
when does that start? Who's the first matchup on the
Sunday.
thing on it behind you? Who's on the top there? So we're just gonna let him ramble about that for a little bit. As per usual, we refuse to let this become a soccer show. Let's go ahead and bring our guest in, Dusty. Oh, hey Dan, that was weird. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I know. Monday, U.S. Wales, baby.
Thanks. Was concerned.
Hey guys, what's up? Hey guys, what's going on?
Welcome to the show.
Is this just does Dan always talk soccer? Because I can leave. I can just take off.
Honestly, you should. You can get out of here. I don't blame you.
Okay, thanks. It was good to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Dusty. Chatting with you. New show out this weekend. Everybody. If you're gonna be here, plug your stuff, and then let's.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do it later. I don't need to be here anymore.
We're just gonna put it on the scroll at the bottom and just get him out here.
Yeah, after I leave, that's fine. That's more than fine.
All right, Dusty.
No, Dusty.
Nope. Go, Dan.
Oh, Jimmy, I'll clear the floor. No, Jimmy, I'll clear out.
I was just going to ask Dusty because he's the smartest person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Packers back? Or should I temper my hope?
If you believe it in your heart, man. Like, listen,
NFC's getting better. Like some of those teams have created a little distance. It's still kind of a bucket of garbage, right? Like, so they can make up a couple games if they need to, but margin's slim, dude. So listen, Ben, come on, man. Listen, if you want to believe the hope is alive, you believe it. You still have at least a couple weeks to believe that. So I'm currently believing it, if that helps or hurts. I don't know which.
Oh, it helps.
Okay.
I'm all in. I mean, I was never fully out on this team.
You did say they were going to win by 3. You
I did.
reminded me of that. You did say that.
So I've only been saying that for like 3 or 4 weeks now. Eventually I had to be right. I knew that when they finally won a game, it was going to be by a field goal. So, it's what I do.
Dusty, I want to ask I'm just going to go right for the jugular. And I want to ask like the question that I think is on everybody's mind after that game. And you've touched on it a little bit too. Christian Watson.
Yeah.
This past week, was there something different happening that allowed this to go on? Or was this just finally like like everything just kind of clicked and it worked this week and it just wasn't working before?
Well, I mean, he was healthy the whole week. Like that certainly helps. And he was on the field more than I think week 1 or 2, he was on the field for like 65% of snaps. This game, he was on the field for like 85%. So part of that is they had to run guys out there and they only have limited bodies. So he got more snaps, but I think they made a point to get him out there a little bit more, but then also like, I think they committed to some of the under center play action game more than they had all year. Under center, they were under center over 50% of the time, and they'd never touched 30% this year. Play action, they went play action 47% of the time. They hadn't touched more than 23% all year. So they had this plan, I think they came in with. Basically, we're going to run the ball, even against loaded boxes, and then we're just going to bombs away. Just use Christian Watson bombs away when we're out there. And he can do that because he can run block. So the approach was different, I think, and that certainly helps. But just the fact that he was able to be out there for like 85% of snaps, whatever it was, while being healthy, and they were able to just use, I mean, his entire skill set was on display, man. He had the deep stuff. He had those crossers where he's out running guys. He's blocking stuff in the run game. They had him on the jet motion to impact the rushing lanes and all that. Like everything he could do and do well, they had him doing this past week, and he was out there and healthy for all of it. Like that, it made a huge difference combined with kind of some of the offensive shifts they made.
How much?
Was that too serious? I felt too serious.
No, this was great
because
because we're dumb. So this is fantastic. How much does that, with like committing to the run game, even against loaded boxes, like how much does that translate to a Titans defense that is really good against the run? Like, is that still going to be something you like foresee us committing to, even though it is a really talented run game? Or do you think it's going to have to be the passing game steps up?
So I think they will. I think it depends. So when we talk about like loaded boxes, like the 8-man box thing, like it's important because that's the number of bodies that are in there, but it's a tougher thing to talk about. It's more important, like the rushing angles you can get on some of this stuff. Like one of them, and I pointed out a couple different places, was an 8-man box that they did a sweep on. And to get the edge on that, there's a couple things that have to go right. They use motion to kind of they use motion a lot to get like advantageous blocking angles on this stuff. So use motion to bump the linebackers in, which then gets the angle for the outside, so you can kind of get that. So there is, and they did run between the tackles as well. But for the 8-man box, that is important. But more important than that is what angles can you get and what can you effectively block from the 8-man? Because you can get an 8-man box and the rushing still looks good because you have good blocking angles in there. But I think I looked at this. Titans. Sorry, I'm looking because I'm trying to access the part of my brain. The Titans, I think, with the 8-man boxes, teams were averaging like 3.8 yards per attempt against them, which is not good. But given what the Cowboys were giving up before that, I can't remember what it was. They were giving up a low number too. Like, I do think they'll commit to it. Now, the big thing is, or they're going to start committing to it. I guess that's the thing is, was this past week the commitment to the run game and all that, was that a mirage? Is that just something that they were like, we're going to stick to this no matter what because we don't have the choice? Or does that get abandoned if they run into the wall 3 times in a row against the Titans and they just decide we're not going to do that anymore? We're going to throw. Like, and the Titans do have, I think, middle of the road pass defense, but number 1 rush defense. So I hope they will. And based on what we've seen from this past week, they may have finally decided this is how we have to win. And we can get there with the blocking up front, with the offensive line where it is now. We feel good about that in terms of the blocking stuff. this team, it just seems so finicky. So much of it is some of it's the whim of Rodgers, some of it's the whim of the floor that like this didn't work. Instead of banging our head against the wall, we're just going to do something different. And we're going to chuck this thing. Like, who knows at this point? But I hope they will stay committed to this. But yeah, it's a big test this week for sure to see if they will.
Yeah. Have you seen? There was a piece this morning that came out with Dan Orlovsky and Ryan Clark and Mina Kimes was talking about the more gaps and power runs that are happening. Typically, this has been a zone blocking scheme on this team. I don't pay close enough attention to it. Are you seeing more gaps and powers out of this team than they were running earlier in the season?
Yeah, for sure. And they even started the season a little heavier than they had been. I think because I really wanted more power last year. And I think last year they were running power on, I've got all these spreadsheets somewhere. Last year they were running power on like 5% of their rushing attempts last year were power. This year coming into, I didn't look at the past two. So coming into the week 9 game, they were up to 25-30% of their runs were power. So still a lot of, and they're really leaning more inside zone than wide zone over the past year as well. So even their zone stuff is more immediate, kind of running at you, trying to slam the ball at you as opposed to like getting outside. But yeah, some of the, and I haven't looked over the past couple of weeks, but they were trending in a direction of like plus 30% power runs, which again, 5% last year. So I think it is something that they're getting a little more comfortable with. Them getting pulling Josh Myers a lot. Like you don't typically see centers pulled that much. They get Myers out a bunch. Him and Elton Jenkins, they'll have pulling, which is really cool. You get those athletes out in space. So it's trending in that direction. And certainly more than we had seen last year. So it's been exciting for the first time in a long time. I'm like, wow, this run game actually looks kind of cool. This is exciting.
Dusty, I think I want to go back and I want to talk more about Christian Watson because that for me, that was the highlight of this whole thing. When you look back at, I think for me, it felt like he's getting more of a magnifying glass put on him this week, obviously, because of the performance that he had. The technique, the little stuff that you saw. Have you seen that stuff? The stuff that everyone's highlighting, especially that I think it was the third touchdown on that play that he
just that little shallow drag.
That little shallow drag, like wiggle around. The guy gets put in the spin cycle. When you look at the film from the games where he isn't performing as well or didn't show up on the stat line, is that stuff still showing up? Is this like the first time we've kind of just seen like the full Christian Watson, like he's put it all together because he's healthy and it just kind of worked out together?
I think this is the first time we've seen all of it. I mean, some of the shallow crosser stuff, they weren't doing as much. They used him more kind of deep guy and then jet sweep guy was kind of more how they had used him. I mean, the stuff was there from college, but as far as like what we've seen from him in the pros, yeah, I'd say this is, again, maybe it's just because they have more snaps and because they were desperate and like, we need him to do more things now. And then he showed I can do more things than what you're having me do. But you were seeing a lot of post go routes, jet sweeps was a lot of what we saw kind of early. And then it's kind of opened it up a little bit more. I mean, he was, for all those deep stuff. I mean, listen, the protection hasn't been there. Like if you watch him, he's open every time he goes deep, every time they cross him across the field and they can't always protect it. But he's always open. Like he's splitting safeties. That man is just, I have a hard time not getting too hyped up about him because it is still rookie year, but like everything you want to see him do from the run blocking game to not just the speed, but the way he's able to kind of sink into the routes. Like he can run a bunch of his route tree is very good. He's a nuanced route runner. He understands coverages and leverage and all that stuff really, really well. We had one this past week where he kind of looked at the leverage wrong. I think it went back shoulder as opposed to up the field where he was kind of running. He was looking inside and ended up going outside. So you have some of those, but there's stuff like 1,000 times we've seen from Rodgers. You got this try to explain it, I guess. Go route down the sideline, and then the defender will kind of cap the guy. So he's playing up and over the top and inside. Rodgers will always throw that back shoulder because you can't throw that over the top because you're capped by the defensive back. Rodgers throws that back shoulder, but Watson was so fast that he outran the guy who was capping him. And like, we've never seen that. So that was one where like that goes back shoulder, but if he throws that up over the top, instead of a 15-yard gain, that's 50-yard gain or something. So there's little things like that as well, where like, I don't think they quite know exactly what they have in him yet because they're operating as if he's just another guy, and he's just destroying leverages on that stuff. So it's yeah, we saw I think a bigger picture of his skill set this past week, and then also like we saw exactly what he could do even when he wasn't getting the ball, and it was very exciting.
You mentioned like the protection on some of those plays where Watson was open, and we saw this last week. One of the plays Rodgers ended up getting, I think he ended up getting sacked. Like there was Alan Lazard was open and also Toure on the sideline.
Yeah.
Like this was the first game we had the Packers ideal 5 like offensive linemen start to finish. Are you confident in those 5 to be able to open up some of this passing game? Like, I guess we saw this now with Watson to where he was able to have a game like this. Like, do you think those starting 5 are going to be able to do enough to give Rodgers enough time to hit those?
I think so. Like I'm not confident, but like it's better than it has been. That Toure one, that was a busted coverage that he was open on that Rodgers was getting ready to move over to him. And that was just, I mean, the rest of it held up pretty well. That was just Elton Jenkins got beat clean. He got beat to the outside, couldn't quite get there. I mean, those reps will happen. We've seen more from Jenkins this year than we had before, but he'd been pretty good in the left guard spot. So I think from what we saw this past game, now it's tough to take too much of this from that, I guess, because they had been throwing 40 times a game and Rodgers had 23 dropbacks. So the sample size is way smaller, but he had more room in the pocket to step up and navigate the pocket to hit some of that stuff than he had all year. Now, maybe some of that is that Micah Parsons was kind of more off-ball linebacker as opposed to pass rusher. They didn't have like the full complement of weapons. They weren't running at them. But I mean, I do think that he looked. I do think he had more room to step up, and so I think that continues. Although I think there are still going to be these little breakdowns. I don't think it's going to be as clean as what we're used to, but I do think it's better than if, knock on wood, right? If all these guys stay healthy and they're starting out the 5 we saw this past week, I think they're going to really hit those things more often than not. But you're always going to have these little ones where like, they just barely missed that one. The Toure one hurts because that was if he was getting ready to move to that read. If he moved over there was no within 20 yards of him. That's a touchdown. It's just one of those plays, really.
You meant, Jimmy, I'm glad brought up the offensive line because I think that like you look at the highlights again, compare the highlights from this week to the low lights from last week, and it feels like a lot of
no, Dan. I will not.
Say, that's knocked out of our minds. Don't bring that shit up, Dan.
Well, like I just take any like a lot of the big plays that have been missed, over this past 5-game stretch, and like just Dusty was highlighting it. If the protection is there, even a little bit better for another split second, some of those plays get hit. I think True North brought up Josh Nijman over right tackle. That feels like it, now, like has Josh solidified himself at that position now? Like, is he the right tackle of like the future now?
I don't know about the future. Like, that's the thing. Like, he is good. I do like him. I think he's turned into exactly what you hope for when you draft a free athlete like that, and then you just let him develop. Like, he's good. I don't know that he's like a lockdown right tackle you give like top 10 right tackle money to, but he is a more than serviceable right tackle in this offense. So, I mean, he's a guy that, listen, if they're able to sign him as a guy for the next few years to kind of hold down that right tackle spot, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Like, that would be tremendous. I don't think he's like I don't think he's a guy you shell out a bunch of money to, but I think he's a guy that you can, I mean, as we've seen, I think he's a guy you can win with. I still think there's some stuff to clean up there, but he's certainly grown over the past. Like last year, they protected him a lot more, like a lot of chip help, a lot of that stuff. Like this year, they're leaving him alone a little more, and I think he's doing a pretty good job with it. So I've been impressed with him for sure. I know Matt Pickett's here in the chat. I know Matt Pickett is his number one cheerleader. So there's your Josh Nijman talk, I guess.
So Dusty, how long do you think it is before we see defenses start to kind of respect the passing game opening up a little bit more? I mean, is it something that you expect to see from the Titans coming out this week, or do you kind of expect them to line up and say, okay, show us you can do it again, and maybe we'll start to respect you?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Honestly, you're welcome. That's
Jimmy,
the first time I said that. I got to say that to Jimmy the next time, I guess, so you guys don't get your feelings hurt.
If Jimmy ever asks a good question, Dusty,
okay,
still don't compliment him.
Multiple times during interviews, you guys ask.
Anyway, Dusty, continue.
I think I wouldn't be shocked if this week we see teams playing the same, because what we've seen, I've talked about this in a lot of different places around the league. There's a rise in like too high split safety coverages to kind of bring basically suppressing a bunch of explosive plays. You get those too high light box, have them run against you, blah blah. It's all the stuff that basically Staley was doing with the Rams, and now it's grown across the league. It was really against the Cowboys. Cowboys ran this all the time. Against the Packers, pretty much every team, I think since week 3, has run their highest percentage of cover 1 press man. So basically just single high, we're going to man up on you, and we're just going to beat the hell of out of these receivers at the line, and we don't think you can beat us. The Cowboys ran it. I think they've been running some variation of like single high, whether that's cover 1 or cover 3, 40-50% of the time. So they're one of the higher teams in the league. They ran against Green Bay 75% of the time this past week. And that's why those things were open. I wouldn't be shocked on a short week, especially if Tennessee comes out and goes, if they've got a plan, I probably going to see a lot of single high press man. Probably, I wouldn't be shocked to see a lot more of that this week. Partly as a prove you can do it, and partially because they had this game plan likely built, before they came in, because it's a short week. And then if they're able to do it again this week, if Watson's able to kind of get off press, if they're able to do some of the stuff that they showed against the Cowboys. Was it the Eagles is the next opponent coming off that week and a half? I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing like a shift back to more of that too high. But I think against the Titans, we'll probably see more of the same, and just say partially see if you can beat it, and partially we already had a plan to beat you, and we didn't know that Christian Watson was an alien and going to play, and then we'll kind of see going forward. But I think probably by the Eagles game, if it keeps up this week, Eagles game, we'll start seeing that shift again, I think.
So how much of the fourth quarter do you think was really the Packers, and how much of it was Mike McCarthy just being Mike McCarthy with a 14-point lead?
Terrible question.
Awful question, Tom. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know, maybe a little bit of both. I tend to credit the Packers a little more with that, because I don't know that I didn't look too close at the Cowboys defense in there. Like, I don't think they changed too much. I don't think they really did a whole lot defensively that would kind of like make them kind of stop and approach that differently. Yeah, I don't know. I tend to go with the Packers there. Although I will say the floor late game clock management there was a little bit more McCarthy than what we've seen out of the floor. So that was kind of a throwback, as an homage to the man across the aisle from him, that kind of running the ball as opposed to passing with a minute and a half left and 2 timeouts. But I tend to credit the Packers in that, just because it was, and I've been on this train, I think, a little bit. There's a narrative going around as far as like, what is it? You punch the Packers in the mouth, like they don't come back from it. I think that's an overblown narrative. If you look contextually at most of those, like, that's not necessarily the case. It's if one of these 2 plays goes the other way, the narrative shifts. It's usually a win or loss type narrative, as opposed to like what you're seeing on the field. I will say this one likely put all those to bed. I would hope, being down by 14 in the fourth quarter, like maybe now it's not, well, you put this team soft. I don't think they are. I don't think they ever have been. It's just breaks of the ball kind of fall a little different sometimes.
Speaking of trains that you're on, Dusty,
looking forward to where this is going.
Terrible question already.
We know. Shut the fuck up, Todd.
Dusty, if you were a conductor, who's the caboose?
Would you love Thomas the Train? No. You love Amari Rodgers. Todd got shit on today, which I personally enjoyed thoroughly, about his hate and just hopes of failure of Amari Rodgers. I just want you two to hash that out so we can just figure out who's right on this. So, Dusty, you like Amari, and Todd, you hate Amari.
I don't hate Amari. I don't hate very many people.
But you think it's weird people want him to succeed in his career.
It's weird the number of people standing up, pounding their chest, screaming from the top of a mountain that they want him to do well, as if he ever did anything for this team. And that's like, there have been good quality players leave this team that people have been like, turd, hope he's awful, don't even, or just don't say anything in general when they leave. And that's what gets me, is I don't know that, other than being a nice guy, Amari ever did anything to endear himself to a fan base to get this kind of ovation as he leaves.
Hey, the Packers don't get to come back from down 14 if he doesn't muff that punt.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Dan.
He didn't muff the punt, Dan. He fumbled a punt return because he doesn't protect the ball when he runs with it.
We established it is very scary when they're running full sprint at you.
Those
You
men
know
are
on
yelling.
They
Factor has
jog
been
it.
established.
Jimmy. You asked Dusty the question. Let
Sorry,
him
Dusty, go ahead.
answer.
Go ahead,
First of all, tremendous question. I want to marry that question, Jimmy.
Thank
That's
you.
the best question ever.
Started off with
Take it out
conductor, and then
there.
we went to other things. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's nice guy stuff. I mean, it is. I know people that know him. I know people that have been around him, and from everything I've heard about him, like very nice dude, very hard worker, studies very hard, like just by all accounts a delight to be around. And some of that was echoed. It was very funny to me the floor comments when he was released, because basically it was him and Kylan Hill. And Amari Rogers was like, man, we hate to do it, production-based business, all that. He wasn't producing. Then Kylan Hill was like, sorry, not a good locker room guy. Move on. Like, it was just these two, like, you could tell that, like, Amari Rogers well loved. And here's what I'll say about Amari Rogers. I liked him in college. I think he's a limited athlete. I think his RAS was like 5.3 or something like that. But he does everything you want to see him do within a limited skill set. As far as, like, he can operate in the slot. He is he's a willing, like, out of a wide receiver, I'm looking for in the run game and even some of the pass game. If you're looking for short pass game, do you know what you're doing? Are you a willing blocker? You're going to miss some blocks, but are you those two things? Amari Rogers always did when he was on the field, everything that was asked of him. He knew where he was supposed to be. He put himself into the blocks, even if he missed a couple of them. And when he got the ball in his hands, which was not very much, but when he got the ball in his hands, he was all like, it was him and DeGuara are like my guys. Like when they get the ball in their hands, they turn up field, they get what's there, they show a little explosiveness, and they fall forward. I think the Amari Rogers stuff, I think his career plays differently in Green Bay. And I'm not saying a bad word about him because I love this man to death. If Randall Cobb does not come back, so much of that is tied up in they're the same player, like to the point where this overblown thing that everyone knows by this point that like what Randall Cobb was coached by Amari Rogers' dad. Like they're the same player, like size wise. Rogers is a little smaller, but he's thick like Cobb. He's got that short area quickness, if not the top area speed. He's a good blocker. He does everything. And for Amari, and to Amari Rogers' credit, I'll give him this. Listen, the man's not a good punt returner. Like we knew that. He likely knew that. He was not getting the play that I think he probably should, the play that he thought was perhaps promised when he came on because Cobb was there. You never heard a word out of that guy. Like not a single word, no complaints, no nothing. So for me, that's what it comes down to is I always thought that with an expanded role in the offense, he's not going to be a game breaker. But if you put him in the backfield on a couple plays, you put him in the slot, you ask him to block, you give him a couple catches in short area and space and see what happens. We've seen those things from him that led me to believe that he could be successful there. So that combined with the fact that he's like, seems to be a good person, I want nothing but success for him going forward. It didn't work out here. And again, I think some of that is just when Cobb came back, it was, we've got two guys that are the same. One of these guys has to see the field. We can't do anything with the other guy. And we need to find a spot for him. And he was not good at that spot. And
I guess
sucks.
that's why I kind of assumed that there was something going on with him not picking up or grasping the offense, because with Cobb being out for several games now, Amari's role in the offense might have expanded a little bit. You saw him out there a little bit more, but as far as actual touches, it didn't translate to that. And that's where I kind of leaned on that. There's just something that the coaches aren't seeing from him that warrants getting him out there more, whether that's not grasping the offense or looking at the number of times that he does fumble and saying, do we really want the ball in this guy's hands more?
Yeah, I mean, and that is a possibility. I mean, the coaches stuff, we don't know that. I will say, like that rookie year, I think even in the preseason and some of his early snaps on offense, they had to burn timeouts because he was lined up in the wrong place. So we certainly saw that rookie year, and I don't know if we've really seen that since. This year I feel like he was where he was supposed to be. But yeah, with all and I think to me some of the stuff then the floor comments in terms of like we hate to see him go and all of that. Like I was talking, I think on Pack a Day this week. Ted Thompson, I don't know if he used to do this or not, or this is just the thing that I made up in my mind. Ted Thompson used to do this thing where like there's a player who's underperforming and Mike McCarthy wouldn't stop playing him. So eventually Ted Thompson just cut him so Mike McCarthy couldn't use him anymore. So part of me is like, I wonder, this is galaxy brain nonsense. Like how much of this was like, we can't use him on punts anymore, but we want to put him somewhere. So we have to cut him. So we're not using him on punts anymore because Cobb is coming back from the offense. Like that's my take in terms of why this is coming now. Probably completely fake conspiracy stuff, but that's what I choose to believe in my mind.
I support it.
Thank you.
Dusty, I think we'll kind of get you out pretty soon here. I want to know with the Amari Rogers thing, how much longer do we need to kind of wait before we look at the 2021 draft class and be like, wow, that was a gigantic turd overall?
I've seen people doing that now. I've seen that going around a little bit. And listen, man, everyone's free to live their life however you want to live. And if guys are out the door, books close on them in Green Bay. Like, that's fine. I've always been of the mind like 3 years, because even like Rashawn Gary, like after 2 years, Rashawn Gary is like, this guy's seeing the field like 40% of the snaps. Like, what are we doing here? So I'm always of the mind 3 years, because who knows? We're 2 years into that. So by next year, what if we see what if Royce Newman, who sat on the bench for a little bit and he now knows how to pick up stunts magically? Like, you never know what's going to happen. So I typically subscribe to the 3-year theory. And even then, not everyone's going to hit. And so 3 years, if you get, I don't look at the draft too much. I don't really like spend a whole lot of time going, was this a good draft or a bad draft? But typically, if we're 3 years out and you've got, say, 2 to 3 like good starters from that draft class, or even like usable pieces from, like, depending on where they're taken, I kind of consider that a win somewhat. So I'll go 3 years. But yeah, dude, it's doesn't look good right now. Like, it's not a like a shining beacon that everyone's looking to in terms of like what you're trying to accomplish in the draft.
And I'm sorry, because we kept you way longer than I told you we were going to.
No, you're fine.
And we can get you out of here on this one, but we had Josiah DeGuara on here twice now, friend of the show. We love him dearly. How could he unlock / help this offense if they played him more?
I love him so much.
So I wanted to ask you. You're the Josiah DeGuara genius.
I think he doesn't get the credit just because the production's not there. When you see him out there, and I think he typically grades out, whether you look at Andy Herman's grades or PFF grades, somewhere average, slightly above average. What he's able to do in the run game, I think is really, really good. I like him. They use him a lot on. They've been over the past couple of weeks, use him a lot more on motion as a way to kind of either kick out guys, or this past week, one of the kind of the sweep around the edge there, they used him as kind of a misdirect motion guy and ended up being the lead blocker. Like, the thing that DeGuara is going to give you. And I think part of it for me, I think when you look at his career, I think they drafted him wanting that hybrid halfback because that's what they wanted in the offense. And then the offense shifted more like shotgun spread, and you don't really need that guy too much in shotgun spread. So he got caught somewhere in the middle. But that's another guy who does everything asked of him. Like, he's a dog in the run game. Like, if he locks you up, and he doesn't miss a whole lot of blocks at this point, he's going to run you out of the play until the end of the whistle. And if he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to get what's there, and he's putting his head down. He's going to punish someone by the end of it. So I think in terms of what he gives the run game, more than the pass game, because he's not really used there too much, but what he gives in the run game as far as the blocking, to Todd's point, some of the power blocking stuff they're attacking some of these like B gap runs by motioning him in, snapping the ball, and then he's just hitting that B gap and hitting a linebacker full speed from motion. Like, we've seen that quite a bit. So I think he's, in terms of like the power run game, I think he's doing everything asked of him there, even if he's a little undersized for it. But yeah, I think that's where he helps your offense the most. And I think he's shown that, even if the production isn't necessarily there.
You're so smart. So smart.
Well, Dusty, we always appreciate you coming by, sharing these kernels of wisdom and knowledge, blessing us with your truths and your facts. Do you want to let the people know where they can follow you on any of the socials? Anything you want to let people know that they can find you at?
You can find my handles there. I'm at Dusty Evely, and then I just kind of shout to the heavens. I'm once a week on Cheesehead TV, once a week at Pack Report, once a week Pack a Day, and then I'm just videos on YouTube and Twitter, kind of I did a big one that hit earlier today, breaking down 18 of Christian Watson snaps from this past game. That was fun, even if I felt like it was borderline nonsense for a grand portion of it. I had fun doing it. So yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll, for as long as Twitter is still a thing, I guess, I'll be shouting stuff there.
And of course, watching stuff every other Saturday.
Yes, I forgot to record that. Yeah, we're doing watching stuff. We got one this week coming out. That's with Aaron Alice, Monty Moore. This week we're joined by Sarah Kelleher, one of my guest hosts from Pack a Day, and we're talking about Captain America: Winter Soldier. So we get together. We always talk ahead of time. It's one of my favorite parts of this. I know Danny wants to come on, so I will get out of here in a minute. I'll get out of your hair. Aaron always has these like elaborate drinks. Like, so I did this because it's this and this and this, and I mixed all these things together. And it's amazing. What are you guys drinking? Like, just bourbon. It's just it's brown liquid what I poured into a glass. Like I always feel so underprepared when I go on those things, but I love talking to them about Marvel stuff every other week. So yeah, it's exciting.
It's a fun podcast. Really enjoy listening to it.
Thank you.
Dusty, again, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate it. Take it
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. Appreciate say all of you equally. Let's do that. I appreciate all of you equally.
No, pick one. Pick one, Dusty.
There's only one of us that showed you how to use a parking meter.
That's Todd. It's Todd. I appreciate Todd the most.
I called you a beautiful genius. God damn it, Dusty.
You didn't wear the halter top today, Jimmy. I can't give you
I will
compliments.
take all my clothes off right now for you, Dusty, and I'm not even kidding.
Well, thanks for joining us, Dusty. We're gonna let you get out of here.
See you guys. Thanks.
Bye, Dusty.
See you, man.
Oh man. All right. Thank you to Dusty again for stopping by, sharing those kernels of wisdom that he always brings in. All right. Are we doing buy around pay a tab now? We bringing in Danny for it? What's the plan? I was not ready for any of this. I was not prepared.
Yeah.
We're
Danny,
still
thumbs
prepping
up
on
if
the
you want to
fly.
join us for buy around pay the tab. All right.
Thumbs up.
In!
There it is.
Big success. Hello,
Girl,
Danny.
you all tatted. I didn't know you had tattoos. Girl, you out as hell.
There we go. Yep. This is my first one ever in my life, the whole thing.
Way to just jump in on it.
Yeah, you gotta go all in at that point.
Yep.
In for a penny, baby.
What's up?
Oh. Danny, how are you doing? How this guy it has to be? This is the first time we've had Danny on post a win, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today as well.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So feeling better. How are you feeling about? How do you feel about the win? Because I think like that's been more the question that's been circling around is how do you feel about the win itself? Are you encouraged by it? Are you still a little bit more cautious? Like wait and see like what happens the next couple weeks? Like where do you fall on that?
Of course, you're going to be a little cautious, I think. But was happy for Christian Watson, and I think he will continue to play as well as he did for that game. Yeah, I'm excited about the win. If he actually grasps everything and he can catch balls now, all of a sudden, I think they're going to do really well in the future. As for playoffs, I'm still not so sure that they're going to win enough games, but I'm excited about the future, though. That's what that game did for me. I'm excited to see where Christian Watson goes.
So
from here on out.
Like next year future, not like the future coming weeks.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think I am too. Todd, Jimmy, I didn't ask you that question. Where do you exactly do you fall on it?
Playoffs. I'm in. I'm sold. My hopes are up. And I've kind of been saying this, like if the offense figures it out and gets it going, it's only going to take one game for them to get that confidence. You saw it with Christian Watson. He had those 2 drops early, made that big catch, and like then that confidence was there. And Matt even commented on it of like, we told him we were coming back to him, and once he did, he just started rolling. So I think you just see enough, and I was talking about it during the trade deadline of bringing in a receiver that can beat man coverage, that can stretch the field, that's going to force defenses to play differently, open up the run game. That keeps the defense on the sideline, let them get fresh, and it wears out the opposing defense. Put that up there. Put that up there, Jimmy. You wanted to.
I tried to, asshead. My hopes have skyrocketed, and it makes me so nervous. But like, I think this coming game is really the deciding factor. Because if we lose to the Titans, then like, to me, there's no chance then after that we beat Philadelphia. We have the Dolphins coming, the Vikings coming again. Like it's really like this game is going to decide in my mind, like, oh, we're playoff. No question. Like, I think this is the one where can we stack success? Can Christian Watson bounce back? Can our team face a physical team? Like it goes back to that Salah quote where he was like, we know if we punch him in the mouth or take him out, whatever the weird thing he said is like, they're going to give up. Like,
you're nailing it, dude. Keep going.
Thank you. If we can beat a physical team like the Titans, I'm locked in on playoffs. Like that is our kryptonite, a physical team. And they're the most physical team in the league. Mike Vrabel's fucking crazy. He'll fight anybody. So if
He
we beat
he
them,
did
we're
say
good.
he would cut his balls off for a Super Bowl.
I'd cut my balls off for a Super Bowl. That's not that crazy.
I don't think I would, but you already have kids, so
I'd cut all your balls off for a Super Bowl.
Thank
all
you.
of you.
I have 2 kids, one on the way. Cut them off. I'm good. I'm done.
I don't have any doubt that they can do it. I'm just wondering, is it a little bit too late to do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have any doubt that that game lit a spark and they can go run the table again. I don't have any doubt that Aaron Rodgers can go out there and do that. It's just we've already lost to the Commanders, the Giants, a couple NFC teams. So where are we going to land at the end of the season? Is it going to be too late? But
yeah,
no, I think they can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I fall in it, because I sort of disagree with Jimmy. I think because this game is a Thursday night game, it like throw Thursday night records out the window. Like Thursday nights are so weird because of the shortened schedule, guys aren't rested up, like anything can happen on a Thursday night game. For me, it's if they would lose next week to Philly, that's when I kind of see like, okay, you can't compete with the big guys in the NFC at the moment. But the thing is though, Jimmy,
it's the record. That's the problem.
Right. That's exactly that's what I was getting at, was like, it's not so much if they lose to the Titans, I don't believe in this team. It's if they lose to the Titans, like what Danny's saying, you're already sort of behind the 8 ball with the way your record is. If you lose, like, you kind of have to basically win out the rest of the way, at least till your bye. Titans, Eagles, Bears before your bye. If you win out those 3 games, then you go into the somewhat easier part of your schedule in December for the home stretch. If you lose one of those games, though, it's kind of you're kind of really hoping for a prayer at that point. And the Titans game, like I said, Thursday night, tough game or tough team. Derrick Henry. It doesn't give me a lot of hope for what we can look forward to.
It's probably going to be one of those years where we're at the end of the season and having to watch what other teams are doing. Like if this team wins and we win this one, then we'll make it. Or these 2 teams got to lose, this one's got to win, we got to win. You know what I mean? It's probably going to be where we're watching all these teams at the end of the season, seeing what they're doing. That's going to dictate where the Packers are, if the Packers are going to make it into the playoffs. That's what my gut feeling is.
Which would be a ton of fun. I remember I was at the game against Denver years ago when Minnesota lost to the Cardinals late in the game.
Oh,
and the Packers were like just beating the shit out of the Broncos, and the stadium was dead because they were like, and this was pre-smartphone. They were intentionally not saying the score in the stadium of that game. And so fans in the boxes behind us turned their TVs around so that we could see it. And I just remember like being in the stands, turned around, watching like this little angle of a TV that I could see to try and watch the Vikings Cardinals game while the Packer game is happening now. Like nobody cared about this game. Like it was up there. That was a ton of fun. So if that's how we have to get in the playoffs, let's do it.
So let's say like we do, like we're pretty successful the rest of the year. We end up missing the playoffs. Like which loss is going to be the one that hurts the most?
Detroit.
Is it?
Yeah, Detroit.
Detroit might be the worst loss I've experienced.
It's a shitty loss, but like in that game, I said this on the Pack-A-Day preview. It's coming out tomorrow. Like never in that game did I feel like, yeah, thank you. I'm going to do it. Never in that game did I think like, oh, we're in control of this. In the Giants game, we were up. We were winning. Like that's one that's going to piss me off because like we had that game and then we let it go. The Lions game, we weren't in that shit from the start. So like that one,
team. They're an absolutely awful team.
That's the thing, Jimmy.
I know, but like we had a lead.
The Giants
Who gives a shit if we had a lead? We lost. Like we still lost both games. We had a lead, but that's what I'm saying. And a good team beat us, or we just flat out got outplayed by a shitty team.
Okay, but why is
having-
that? You're going into halftime down 8 points. You're more upset about that than going into a game where you're up. That doesn't make sense to me.
Because the Detroit was is historically bad, their defense. And you have Aaron Rodgers, the 2-year MVP, who can't do anything against one of the worst defenses you've ever seen in your life. Like,
Yeah, but you had
that's-
no hope that first half. The Giants game, you had hope. You were up. The
Right.
Lions game, I was.
But we
fucking
had
pissed.
all the hope in the world going into it.
Which means that they
Did
at
we?
least played a good half. They
Right.
played They played 60 terrible minutes against Detroit.
And the
Against a
Giant
really
and the
bad
Giants
Detroit
game, we hadn't reached any of this losing streak yet. So we were still coming in there with hope, and just, to me, the Giants game, maybe
It's not what hurt more at the moment. It's like at the end of the year, like which was a bigger fuck
Jimmy,
up?
you asked a question. 3 people who are much smarter than you had differing opinions than you. You're clearly wrong. Let it go.
You're a real jerk, Todd.
Absolutely. I'm a dickhead. We learned that today on Twitter.
I don't think we learned that today. I think we've known that for a while, Todd.
Let's
Don't try to credit yourself.
let's jump into our buy round, pay the tab here before we run out of time.
Jesus Christ.
Good call. Good call.
I mean, I'll go ahead. I'll kick us off because I think I've got a pretty straightforward, easy one. Rudy Ford. That, like, literally. So I was at a point in the game where I was coming in nihilistic Packer fan. The interception in the end zone, I watched it and I had no reaction. I was like, this game is already going so poorly. Like, whoop-de-doo. We got interception. The offense can't move the ball. How am I going to get excited about that? The second interception, I literally jumped off the couch and I started like air riding a jockey. Like I was a jockey and I was like trying to mush him on into the end zone. And I literally yelled, "God damn the draft. I don't care about the draft pick anymore. I want to win this fucking game." That second interception from Rudy Ford made me believe that we could win that game.
I'm picturing you riding something, so I'm so sorry.
You don't need a picture. I just showed you what it was. What it was
I don't
like.
see your hips right now, Dan. I don't. See
You don't
your
need to
hips.
see your hips. I'm bouncing like
No,
that.
hips
That's
are
I'm going to
everything,
keep this
man.
moving here. I was going to go with Amari Rodgers, but we don't have a janitor on staff and he would just fumble it anyways. So I'm going to buy a round for Mashed Potato Mike for coming into Green Bay and doing Mashed Potato Mike thing, taking that 14-point lead
beef.
and just absolutely fucking pissing it down his leg. Incredible stuff from him as per usual. Love to see it. Just enjoy the flight, Mike.
He had an all-time headset spike.
Oh,
there
that was good.
at the
That
end
was
of the game.
good. Yeah.
That was a good one.
My
don't know if
my
that was-
favorite my
Go ahead.
favorite part was it was right down in the corner where we were when Aaron Jones scored and grabbed his dick. During that commercial timeout, they kept showing the replay in the stadium, and McCarthy was screaming at the refs, made them come over, and was like pointing up at the board, like, "How are you not gonna throw a flag?" Like, was so pissed off that they didn't.
That
throw
should have been a
on-
flag.
Oh,
It should have
absolutely. He's
definitely
gonna
been
get
a flag.
fined for it.
Yeah.
But like he was just so mad about that specifically, and the fact that they just kept that replay going, and he like has the refs there like pointing up at the board. It was fucking great.
Jones did that for Mike McCarthy. That wasn't to anybody else except Mike McCarthy.
Sure.
Aaron Jones will always pull out a classic moment against the Cowboys.
He sees them on the schedule and he automatically just sets aside $10,000 for a fine.
Jimmy, who you buying around for?
I'm going with AJ Dillon. He was my pay the tab last week. He stepped up this week. It was the AJ Dillon of old. We saw him break tackles, had a couple 10-yard gains. Like, that's what we expect, not going down first contact. That beautiful, thick man that we love. So he did great.
What more needs to be said about that? The
Yeah,
beautiful,
beautiful
thick man.
bastard. So
Danny, who do you like to buy around for?
I think the obvious answer is Christian Watson.
Yeah.
Because he was just the highlight of that whole entire game.
Mhm.
So Christian Watson for obvious reasons.
Did everybody else
want to kiss him?
panic when he did the backflip?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
my brother
Yes.
in Christ.
You're made of glass.
Half of the wide receivers are on IR at the moment. You just came back from a hamstring injury. Like, what are you doing? And then Randall comes over and tells him to do it again.
Dude, he looked good though. That flip was crispy. It looked good.
It was good. It was good. I do love. I imagine that like a second after the Randall Cobb clip of him coming over and saying like we'll come back to you, and I want to see another backflip. Like the camera yells cut, and then Matt LaFleur comes over and says, "Don't you fucking dare do that." All right, let's jump to pay the tab. Todd, why don't you kick us off with this one? I'm interested where this is going to go.
Yeah, a quick and easy one here. Green Bay is in Wisconsin. 920 is the area code, which is also an area code for Wisconsin. If you're going to have something called a 920 burger, it better have fucking cheese on it. It doesn't, for the record. I was bamboozled by that. I was very upset. The concession line that I went through, they didn't have brats in there. I was pissed off about that. Coming up on kick, so I was like, shit, let me just grab a burger and go. Nothing. No cheese. Just two.
What kind of burger nowadays doesn't have cheese on it?
Especially in Wisconsin.
And it has a Wisconsin, it's named after a Wisconsin area code. Like.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was not in Wisconsin. It was just named after.
No, it's at Lambeau.
Oh, okay.
The 920 burger doesn't have cheese on it. Very upset by this. We can
that's
move
weird.
on.
Jimmy?
Okay. I'm going to look. I'm doing Kylan Hill. Got cut. Not only did he get cut.
In the agenda.
Thank you. Not only did he get cut, it was for like off the field issues. Like, dude, no, like, did you go to this team expecting to be the 1 or 2? No, you're behind Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. Just do your fucking job, be on the Green Bay Packers, and ride it out. Like,
and coming off an injury,
idiot.
Like, what did you think?
Yeah, good riddance. I'm with Todd on this one of hating people that left the team like he hates Amari. Kylan Hill, don't give a shit now. Skedaddle.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll give my pay the tab to Matt LaFleur because you are damn lucky, Matt. Damn lucky. That end of game management in the last two minutes there drove me up a freaking wall. I felt like I was like Peyton Manning. I was yelling at the TV like, call timeout, call timeout, call time. Like, why are we not calling a timeout? And that's the first time I've ever sided with Aaron Rodgers coming onto the sideline and yelling at Matt LaFleur because I'm like, yeah, 12's got a point. What the fuck are we doing with the time management?
You hate
so
Aaron.
We're lucky. We're lucky that they pulled it out because otherwise that's a huge mark on Maddie. Danny, who do you want to pay the tab this week?
Actually, I was going to say LaFleur for exactly the same reason. So
Good job,
Great
Dan.
minds.
I'm going to change it to Amari, another obvious one. But at the same time, okay, so Amari made us down a couple touchdowns because of the fumble. And as we talked about earlier, how the Packers are always said if they're punched in the mouth, they can't come back. But I think that fumble happening and the fact that they did fight and they did come back probably gave them a lot more confidence. So now I'm kind of don't want to have him pay the tab. But I can't really think of any other people that deserve it. So we'll go with Amari still. But I think it was a blessing in disguise, kind of, because they did realize that even though they were down, they could come back. And I think that they'll take that moving forward.
Yeah, I think there's points about it. It's a small tab. It's a small tab for Amari.
Does Keshawn Nixon return punts this week?
He better.
I don't know. That over the head catch scared the fucking shit out of me.
The ball hanging out.
If you're on the 10-yard line and you have to do this to catch a punt, let the fucker bounce at that point. Just
how the instruction for anybody returning punts for the Packers isn't just fair catch it or get the fuck away from it.
Just run away from it. Yeah.
Like Rich Bisaccia cannot be that good of a coach if that's not all he's instructing people to do at this point.
Just have Todd go out there to run away from it every time.
Yeah.
It would be a lot better.
I can
You'll
go out
blow
there
out
and
his
just,
knee.
guys, get away, go.
Todd, how many yards before you blow out your knee? Real question. 5?
0. I'm not touching the
Well,
ball.
how many yards?
still
How
gotta
many
run
yards
away
can you
from
get
it.
in one stride? I just imagine like one stride and then it going like a twig.
I can run without blowing out my knee. They have grass there. Put me on that devil turf.
You
though.
need a knee replacement, Todd.
No, I don't. The doctor said it's structurally fine. I'm just getting old, Jimmy.
Wait, I want
Are
to
we gonna
say,
do-
so
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I want to say, so my buy the round was for Christian Watson. I'm going to change it, pay the tab to Christian Watson for doing that backflip. I changed my answer.
Great point.
He's
put him
both
down
of
for
them.
both. Really just confuse him at the end of the night when he gets his card.
Yeah.
We'll pay for one, and then he's got to pay for one for
Yeah.
us too.
There we go.
All right. Are we gonna do bar bets? Do we have time to do
The
bar
fastest
bets?
bar bets in the world.
All right.
Go.
Fastest bar bets. I want over under. I want an answer and I want number. And
We know how to do fucking bar bets.
Yeah,
Dan,
no
shut up.
talking.
We're pinched for time.
Derrick Henry over under 100 yards rushing this week. Danny.
Oh man, I don't want it to be over, but I
I
think
said
it's going
one.
to be.
I said one word, Danny.
Oh,
Answer
sorry.
and then the number.
Over 4 over.
Over 4.
Dan's
Yeah.
so rude.
What a dick. $5 Bakhtiari.
Hey, you guys
over.
were the ones like, ooh,
Dan,
dude,
move it
dude,
along.
dude,
$5
dude.
Yeah, shut the
Bakhtiari's
fuck up,
over.
Dan.
God.
I'm
Todd
with
says
Todd.
5
5 Bakhtiari's over.
5 over. Aaron Rodgers over under 25 pass attempts, not completion of anything. Pass attempts. Jimmy.
Over 5 Bakhtiari's.
Todd.
Under 5 Bakhtiari. It's going to be snowy.
Okay. Danny.
Over 4.
I'm going to go 4, and I'm going to go under. More receiving yards this week. Randall Cobb or Christian Watson? Todd.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Christian Watson. 5 Bakhtiaris.
Danny.
Same.
5 Bakhtiaris?
Yep. Over.
Jimmy?
Yep. 5 over.
Make it a sweep. 5 over for Christian Watson. Jesus.
Sorry, I was sidetracked by the flight of the Concords happening in the fucking chat. I love it. It's business time.
Yeah. All right. Danny, thank you again for joining us. We're glad to have you on to actually talk about something positive this week. Hopefully we'll get to do it again soon. Real quick, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
On Twitter at Danny in the Snow.
Perfect.
That's it.
You can follow all of us at our socials right there on the little yellow bubbles. You can follow the show on Twitter as well at Lombardi's Bar. Follow the website at Game On WI on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you haven't done so already. Do that right now so you get notified every time that we go live. For producer Nick, who's still out on sabbatical. For producer Kyle, who has yet to actually show up and do his goddamn job. For Danny, for Todd, for Jimmy, I'm your bartender Dan saying cheers, everybody. Of Dusty, of course. How could I forget Dusty? Cheers, everyone.
For
and go
Bowling
Pack
Green.
Go.